Sure. Yes. Oh, no, Wayne. One.
David, thanks, no, I don't. Which Mark is online, can I ask?
Next meeting, we were going to do the last section, but Joe would like to amend the agenda and go through that central or the
Yeah.
number 2 level. Okay,
Yeah.
Is everybody good with that? So Joe, would you like to do that?
So, all the work and everything, right, put into what he presented to us. But in looking at it, there were a number of questions. I'll just go down. The problem is, the sidewalk that would run up the south side of M22. What would be the proposed width on that? Because my experience with the wellness path with them, they required a minimum 7, preferably an 8-foot wide sidewalk.
MDOT's working on it. Just a concept right there to work out all the details.
So taking no effect.
Sure, they would accommodate it. It was just concept to figure out. There's a lot of challenges.
Yeah.
That what's on that drawing.
The other thing is, coming up, if it measures off of the this, so there's 27 units. Building between. So. Will be gone. Susan thought that the utility poles would be gone with.
Who has ownership of the utility pole. So if MDOT gave an easement to the utilities, they can tell the utilities to move them. If
At their cost.
at
So the
utilities
project
cost.
wouldn't have to pay.
Tentatively, I don't have any details, but yeah.
I just.
If the utilities had it and gave the easement to MDOT, that's a different story. Okay.
So we've got a 17.5-foot wide track. Yes, it's a similar question. If you have a 7-foot wide space, I would imagine I'll pick on Wayne with his truck out there, is gonna pull into that parking lane and probably invade. So we can't, you mentioned we can't put those posts or big leaves in there.
Yeah, there'd be some three-dimensional thing, I don't know.
It's going. When we put things, state. It just seems like this was a tremendous turnaround from what we experienced previously as far as what you could do with the real estate. And the original citizens was going west on the highway here. Anybody turning left into Easy Mart, the village offices, all the way down the road, going all the way to the end, there were, I think, 47 cuts through the road. And that, would that present a danger to the bikers? Because people would be cutting across the path a lot, but again, like, question it came up with in preserving parking when the trail would transition from the south side, Lake Street, across to the land side, going out to Portage Point Road, although they're not designated parking spaces. The Portage Lake Motel would lose overflow parking that it utilizes all season long on the street. And the Glenwood, which is probably our biggest landmark in Onekama destination, would lose half of its overflow. And I know whenever open, both sides of M22 have parking on it, and that's caused because their front parking lot is full and their back businesses in the village. And is there a way around that? Wait, they still.
Fires in that property.
Would significantly impede it's there. And I couldn't tell if anything else between their aspect is really owned and used by people. It didn't look like anybody was.
Well, I know
active in
that,
a
so
way.
there's the. So, kind of like, say. Slip. See it.
My last was down to for them to village and cables. I think Mark put a tremendous amount of work in and research into what he came up with. And I think in that we need to have when the team was first formed. She said the best thing would be for us to all sit down face to face with her team and get all our questions answered about what was possible. So my last thing is, you know, they've got a lot of work to do here. Depends what feedback we give, but I think we need. So wait.
Steps, they're reviewing them, and they're supposed to get back to us,
Well,
and then,
but it's one thing for them to review it on paper. It's another thing for them to sit
Yeah, I
and
gotcha.
hear the questions and have that interaction.
And I think that's.
that's what we're doing.
So we'd have them at a meeting.
That I can tell. I think they want to make sure whatever.
Right now, they're going through everything to find out what it is. The same time from the last meeting we had, we need to.
Before we go authorizing spending any portion of the $100,000, we need to.
See. It's not like.
Citizen said it cuts out.
It does that all the time. There's a plus thing. When you just look at it.
So, I think the mic clipping noise canceling internet. Not sure what that means.
Look at, oh, I'm at 100 right now.
Can you hear us?
Much of the discussion is just got canceled out or dropped out because of the internet. I can't tell. But if there's a direct question, I can hear it sometimes. So if you need to restate.
Learning curve, it's not the owl. It's the internet, it's the internet connection that this building has and how we connect the owl to the internet.
So that we seem to have this problem. I
Wonder if
heard
you
Mark.
try to dial.
Hello, Mark, you there?
Yeah. I'll keep my audio on, but I'll turn the.
I'll leave the phone on. Okay,
Wait. Wait.
you can hear
Yeah.
it? Okay.
So you want to hear the primary questions? I don't know what you heard on what we were discussing, the questions on the Central Trail. Or you want me to start over real quick?
I got double mic.
I think I need.
Okay, I just fixed the microphone thing between the phone and the computer. If there's a
drop off
specific
the phone?
question. Yeah, this is working.
So you want to hear the questions again?
Did it stop working?
You hung up on.
I think as soon as you hung up.
He needs his phone to hear this.
Is that, you want it on?
I want the phone on. I can't get the
Okay, okay.
interference to. I can do it now. Yeah, if there's there's much discussion, it seemed like. Between the group, if there's something directed towards me, I'd need it restated because it fell out.
Okay, so, well, let's see, but he
Go ahead.
wasn't involved in the design, was he?
No. So we're talking about that one design that MDOT had, that design company. Joe had a bunch of questions on it, and they need to be decided, or somebody needs to come and give us those answers. Nobody has the answers here. About splitting the, go ahead, Joe, there was, whatever the sizing is of dimensions.
So. We're past the. So the space or the design, in the example was in front of the hardware store, Mark.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Yeah.
46 feet of real estate.
Right.
My experience in developing a citizen wellness path with MDOT was that the gutter pans, it was rock solid. You could never use those. You really only have 43 feet of real estate.
Yep.
Another concern is if you narrow the parking space to 7 feet and the traffic lane to 10.5, well, on this, going from curb to curb, the design is using 17.5 feet.
Yep.
The average vehicle up here is anywhere from, with mirrors extended, because we all seem to drive quarter-ton, half-ton, and full-size SUVs.
Yep.
Is between 95.7 and 105.9 inches. And it seems like this is a dangerous situation. If I'm riding my bike through the village and I choose not to use the trail, which you've already stated in the feasibility study, none of the Class A riders would use the trail. Would say less than 50% of the Class B riders would, meaning the local recreational riders. On this design at 17 and a half feet, if I'm riding along, going to ride on the white line of the with me.
Okay.
If a vehicle is put there, it's going to occupy roughly 8 feet minimum. If I'm riding and a vehicle is going to pass me and it's 8 foot wide, it leaves me 1.5 feet to navigate between them, which seems like an extremely dangerous situation for a biker and for the traffic there. So that 17 and a half space between on each side seems extremely tight for vehicle traffic and cyclists. And on the side where the path is, there's a 3-foot buffer, but it doesn't, the way Rick explained it, you couldn't put poles or some physical divider there. That would also be a problem for snow plowing. But if somebody's going to park, they're going to invade that 3-foot buffer space to park vehicles the size that we have here, which means the passenger door, when opened, would come into the bike pit. So it just doesn't seem like there's enough real estate to put a bike lane with a barrier going down M22.
Yeah, I think the concept provided was like a decent study and like the program widths available, but yeah, these details would need to be, you know, determined in more thorough analysis. So regarding the cycle track and where you put it based on the parking lane, some guidances show it alongside the travel lane, in between the travel lane and the parked cars. Some show it as was presented on the other side, and needing to account for those door swings and other items is all part of vetting that design. So I agree with those concerns. The gutter pan issue, yeah, MDOT likes to measure from the edge of the gutter, so interruptions to their drainage system are accounted for. Gives a little more wiggle room for those car doors to swing open. So yeah, there's some more vetting that could go through that concept, but
the major questions, like, can you use the gutter pan, the width? In this concept, the center lane moves 5.5 feet. It would seem like those are questions MDOT can answer before we spend any money with engineers. Am I correct?
yep. They can, I think they need to show the way for moving the center line. That's a shift in MDOT's center line. And then as well as our special considerations to using, you know, bicycle friendly catch basin covers or different elements to, you know, maybe that bike lane can use that gutter pan, or maybe not the parked cars,
That's
that kind of thing.
one thing I didn't even address, is that if you're riding a bike, in this case, going west to east on that bike path, you have 4 feet of space on your side, but there's a number of storm drains that you'll have to cross that your wheels are going to get caught in and cause an accident.
There's yep, there's all these, you know, programming things that need to get worked out between, this used to be, you know, wide open, extra wide parking lane. Now we're trying to jam some more modes into it, and those adjustments are hard to make. So that's why the concepts showed moving curbs and things like that, just to. In the report, that is, this new concept would have to go through those same processes, okay. This is the program idea, how do we make it work? I think that last part, the space is there, maybe it needs to bump out on the curbs, or maybe get these variances from MDOT to make some of the space limitations relaxed. But yeah, they want their 11-foot lanes and wide enough parking spots. Sorry, that's my alarm. I'm gonna have to apologize. I'm gonna have to leave this meeting right now, but I unfortunately, yeah,
Thanks, Mark.
thank you.
One thing I did notice, the concept they gave you, it had a picture of a parking lane in Traverse City, and it shows it being 7 foot wide. But when Wayne and I looked at it, if you look in this picture, there's a full-size pickup truck there. There's no way that that's a 7 foot wide parking space. That's at least 8 to 9 feet wide to accommodate them. So
All those comments are. So when they first came. So it may not work, it's just a
Yeah.
concept.
And I
Right.
think the 8 foot wide, when my previous experience with them is, you could only count that 8 feet from the edge of the gutter pan.
Yeah. Yeah.
And it's, we don't get to decide.
So what happens when it doesn't work?
Well, it's not an option then, or you have to move the gutter, like they said that. They came to us, and they said, I know you're having challenges, here's a design group, let's see if we can brainstorm and come up with an option for you. Did you wanna preserve you wanna get rid of your sidewalk, so it was just a sketch.
It seemed, well,
What's that?
moving the gutter sounded like even more impossible than other things, because they were adamant, when I talked with them last fall, once they pave this, they do not want anything built on or to disturb what they're doing right now.
Some. They're not gonna guess.
And I think
But not
a
anymore.
lot of the questions that I just asked, and where I'm headed is, MDOT can answer before we spend more money on engineering. And I think you don't go ahead with engineering. We need to look at the whole thing. It's not build it in pieces. We have to look at the whole concept, because the township is going to have to consider, can it meet matching fund requirements for the whole path, not just one section of it or two sections of it. Because when you look at the whole thing, even if you take the village section out, you've got currently over $4.5 million to do South Trail and the North Trail. And Mark said there would be significant increases in the range of 10%. So just looking at South and North Trail, you've got $5 million.
Here's what I can say that I think we as a group have to do. We don't wanna start taking options off. Right, but that's what, I don't wanna hear you say something like, this project is dead in the water if we can't do it.
I didn't say that.
I'm just making sure you're
No.
not saying.
I'm saying you have to take the whole project, as Vic mentioned, maybe we should do it just a piece or two
And we might have
pieces.
to do that.
But you have to look at
And it's okay to do that?
long range.
Well, where that would be up to. Subject to their funding cycles, they don't say, ooh, Onekama. Make sure they have like, just like the Manatee County. Yes, they have grants, funding cycles, and you are subject to. So, wait, not done yet.
Go ahead. Go ahead.
We're subject to those cycles. So we might end up having a pot of money, say, hey, this is our concept, we've figured out A section, B section, C section. Awesome. Some funding comes in here to do section C. We start on that. We know that these people from MDOT, the Michigan Health Endowment Fund are coming in with some money, but it's not for months later. Those are things that we don't want to take. We're not going to tell them, sorry, we have to do this all at one time. Goal, the ultimate goal here is to connect all the way around. I mean, that would be like, you know, C kind of thing. But if we can do that, it's something that people like, and enjoy and appreciate it, and it makes the town nice. If it's not, then we don't want to do it. Tell me if I'm saying something stupid here.
Sure.
Am I
Talking about the cycles,
Yeah.
I think the other question just came up, because I haven't been in every meeting, is, let's say there's three sections. There's the south that we reviewed.
Yeah.
There's the central and there's a north. One, two, or three of them might not work for some reason. And we might only do one, we might do two, we might do three. It's not one continuous piece, because we don't know what the,
which would be great if we could.
yeah.
That was my point, we did say what, I think that there are completely different sections within these sections. Well, within the middle section, there's two sections, and there's an A and B, and now a third, fourth. I thought the challenge to this team was come up
It is.
in each section, the one that you really think works best. And then let's put some costs to that so that we can make an intelligent decision. And you might end up one day, this is a Beach Road to 8 Mile, that's it. Or it could be, the park out there, North Point, into Glenwood, and boom, and that's it. But you need to nail down each of those sections. And, I agree with you. You talk about 2 at 7 million. I don't know, just pick what you think would work the best. And I don't totally disagree with your point about getting questions answered from MDOT, which F was black and whites. We need to get the black and whites answered, no question. I would make sure you do an a la carte. Because I'm pushing it, but because I think that's just the best way to go.
And we're subject to the funding,
So that funding.
In the last meeting, we did a pretty good job on the north and the south sections. The whole issue.
Well,
is
we didn't get to the north.
No,
Well-
you mean the central.
up to Porchmont Road.
I'll call the north, which,
Prospect.
yeah,
Okay.
I'll call that.
So. Michelle Irvin's no longer on the group. But to the point of, if, let's say you only build one segment. I would hope that we do a public survey. Let's say we're only gonna build from Crescent Beach to 8 Mile. It would seem like, because it's gonna be my taxpayer dollars, I live in the village, but even if we only build that, my township taxes are gonna have to go to that because they're gonna have to match a certain amount of funds. That before we would build, let's pick on that one, because it's simplest, I think. But if we go from Crescent Beach Road and it only goes to 8 Mile, is the public in favor of spending money, be it $100,000 or $200,000 out of the township to make? I would hope we would do a survey to find out if that's what the public wants, because going back to conversations I had last fall with Heidi Fanoff, she said, it is critically important that whatever you do, strong public support, it will be, and it will be used. So I'm hoping if it comes down to one segment, 2 segments, all 3, that we would get that input from the public that says, yeah, we like this idea, engineer it, come up with the final
Correct me if
cost.
I'm wrong, Rick. Like
section on public input and it says something there.
So that's what, I think that's what you're talking.
Yep.
And so that's, I guess I would say that's a given.
That section's pretty much set up, so we can start doing work on it. Since we started the project, the challenge has always been through the village. We probably spent 70% of our time trying to figure out a solution through the multiple times.
And
it's
you'll
not
see
easy.
when we do the village concept, we've tried to skinny that down to be low cost, pretty straightforward.
Perfect.
I see a survey coming out for a public meeting or whatever. And we have, we'll call it 3 segments. So you have a third of the people over here, a third of the people over here, and a third of the people over there. And you say, okay, I wanna do segment number 1. Well, 2/3 of the people are gonna go, no, they want segments 2 or 3. I mean, I don't know how you ever get 2/3 of the people to vote for one seg, if it gets down.
Well, the goal is the sections.
I agree.
And part of it is, again, a funding issue. And again, I can't stress this enough, funding cycles. You may get in on a funding cycle and get some amount of dollars. The next funding cycle is in a year, let's just pretend for easy argument's sake, 1 year from there. Doesn't say that there's no hard and fast rule that says you only apply once in your whole life. You apply again, maybe a different agency or something. It's grant funding cycle, and it may be a thing that this is gonna go in phases. There might be 4 phases.
I would expect it to be, and
Yeah,
as
that's what
long
I'm
as we
saying.
explain to people,
And that's the tedious part of this, that we gotta make sure, once we get this from a concept to kind of a great idea. Some professional engineer type guy to get out and look at stuff and say, okay. I know you guys like this, but this is gonna cost you 200,000 extra. We figure something else out. We get that down, then we move to the point where we're talking more like meetings and stuff. MDOT shows up and we have some people and they can, or say, okay, we would like to do this. Here's the overall cost. Here's how much money we have. There's other money available. Here are phases. Make sure we have like, almost like, in my mind, and this is maybe just me, but always like flow charts. I mean, it's a visual and you can kind of see it, touch it. You can see, this one is this, you have a little map and then it goes to this, that. That's something we as a group produce going forward, so it's easily understandable. I think that stop and say, Onekama is a great place. Look at this nice downtown area, bike trail. Somebody might want to open a restaurant or something. So that's my.
could we change our, it is not a bike trail.
Right, yeah,
It
keep
is
saying bike. It's a,
It is a walking, biking.
yeah, it's a
running,
multi-use.
Multi-use.
Have, you guys.
And,
Hang on a second.
Yeah, I'm just talking perception, you know what I mean? I'm just trying to get like, so people can kind of get that in their head. This is there's a lot of, we're gonna have a lot of balls in the air.
So Matt, one thing I think we could use to get people to get that concept pieces, okay? The village park. We built an event stage. But we presented to the village council, we were going to do that as phase 1. We were gonna redo the main pavilion following. We raised money
In here now?
in phase 1 to do the event stage. Then we raised money and went for grants in the second phase. So I think there's groundwork locally for people to understand phases.
Yeah.
Okay, and that might be something good to reference in a public meeting. We've already experienced
And I
this.
would say we're not quite to that point yet, but
No,
yeah, but that's, in my mind, that's kind of where we're heading eventually when we get some more things. And
Fortunate thing is we have resources to solve. then we can piece it. Some of them are gonna be easier than others. You know, so we have the resources now to start working on it and get that together, figure out, because you know what, I don't think there's any easy things on here. You know, that stays from Kristen to Avon. You've got water to deal with, not gonna take any easements. Yeah, you know what I mean? One is surprisingly on a high price because you got that. May not work. The north end may not work. We may find out from this that maybe we don't have any. Nice thing is we got the resources for people to do a deep dive, figure out exactly what's doable and what's not, what the cost is. That's where we're. The village has always been a challenge, and we've all spent so much time on that versus the other sections. We might find out those other sections need more, I don't know. So that's where we're headed to. Were you gonna review also the path, or no, you just had questions on the,
We revised the village concept.
wanna share that with everybody? Sure.
I did send an email. I apologize. It came out around noon or so. Wayne Miller, village president, Mickey, I, and Susan, at 10 o'clock this morning, and came up with an alternative, fifth version of the path going through the village. And I don't know, you should have gotten that on an email, but I'll go back to what we had presented and sent out before, which had multiple routes. There was a pedestrian route, a bike route. There was a primary tour route going through the village. Thanks, Vic. Now, if you look at the map, it's got up here. And I modified the write-up on it to take the confusion out. But we had, starting here, it would go up through and use a series of improved alleys and side streets to create a tour all the way up here, coming down, getting an easement in front of the tennis courts, continuing out to Lake Street. We took all of that out. And the new write-up I have says that the village could look at, we might create a brochure and a diagram showing that it's how you find all the points of interest, historic churches, historic places within the village. You have the option to ride the alleyways or stuff. I know with Wayne, we talked, it'd be nice to improve some of our alleys right up front. But initially, if I took the phase concept, okay, it might be within the village, we focus on biking and walking through the village and touring and fixing up the alleyways as a secondary phase, okay? So we took that out to simplify it. Now it has the pedestrian route, or the walking portion, goes from First out to Prospect, which we have we processed through on Friday using the south side, but this would use the north sidewalk. A, it exists. B, from a cost standpoint, it's already 5 feet wide to 7 feet wide in places. There are large sections of it that do not require repair or replacement at this time. In other words, from here to here is 6,920 feet. MDOT put in ADA crosswalks and they created 6 to 10 foot wings on those. So they've already eliminated a lot of sidewalk that needs to be replaced or repaired. When you take all of that out and sections that Wayne and I looked at it, and Mickey, that there are sections of sidewalk that just don't need to be replaced right now. They're older, they're worn, but they're in good shape. They're not caving or anything, but it would be a less costly way to create a walking route through here. And I can tell you from the survey you did at the open house from August, the number one request was fix the sidewalk, fix the sidewalk. This, you talk about public support, would have tremendous support from the public.
Did they like sidewalks on both sides, or just one side?
They didn't state that. Nobody stated that.
It just seems, I mean, I mean. Just think very.
You can't,
Sidewalk that goes.
yeah, there's from the library tees,
Okay,
there's
John, where is the sidewalk?
there's sidewalk on the south side.
It ends at the far center. And that's,
It ends at the.
then you go like if you're gonna go towards.
There's a sidewalk in front of the bank, and then you have no sidewalk until that.
And I was telling them this morning at a meeting I had.
It would be nice to see it over there, wouldn't it?
It would be, but what I'm saying is, we were trying to focus
We're
on,
trying to simplify it, I think what he's trying to do instead of complex, because
Yeah.
the challenge is. You can't do everything, you know what I mean? If it was easy, we'd already be done.
so a second phase might involve fixing alleyways and putting in a south sidewalk. But like Rick said,
Put in
we were
your-
trying to simplify this
The most needed.
most
Tree.
Now,
Sidewalk tree.
I like the way it goes. It puts.
we recommended using the roadway. Okay, right now, everybody rides through the village. Even Mark Ebel had said way back in an early meeting, there's no problem navigating from First out to the village park on a bike. You're with traffic, but to a degree, traffic slows down in that stretch. And if you left, if the parking lanes were left just as MDOT's gonna leave them when they get done, I assume they're gonna be the same width we have right now. And if they were just left that way, we wouldn't need to invest any more cost in special marking or anything, but what the village concept proposes is on both sides of the road, because you'd be traveling west and east along the parking lane. There would be signs that I know you guys have seen in a lot of places that says, share the road. And there's a picture of a biker and a car. We would have multiples of those along here.
There's a garage, you can do it in, you can put in the road,
Yes,
okay?
It looks like a bike guy.
Well, it's a little different, it's called, there's a name for it,
sure.
yeah. You could put those all the way along to get there.
Mark's proposal had those in the parking lane.
Yeah.
It seemed like there was a restriction, but again, here, MDOT would allow that. The combination of that and signs would help. We
Being a
didn't
trunk
address,
line, we gotta play by the rules, that's another
Yeah.
difficult thing we've had. I mean, they're willing to fund it, but that's it, you can do a share out there. Because my point is, you're gonna have bikes going both ways and, or you, on the other side.
yeah, on the other side.
So you got walkway on one side, you got bike going this way, if you're going this way and a bike,
And on
you
the
come around
south
this
side,
side.
you're riding along.
Okay.
So you're riding the parking lane on the north and south side. You're not creating a special two-way
Okay.
lane. The other thing is that, we had 4 crossings in here. At the far center. Now I'm looking at the map. In fact, there's one missing here. I deleted it. Center, there would be one at, Mill Street and one at Portage, and that's right through the main, either side of the main business district, and it comes all the way out here. Mickey, we can't share his one, but it's interesting. We know that all the ADA work they just recently did, those are 5-foot pumps. And it was interesting because you get out here and the sidewalk is only about 2.5 feet. Mickey's got a picture of the ADA out here, comes up,
Yeah, it's got a big chop.
it's 5 foot wide, the existing sidewalks, you can
Yes,
have.
You can see, but you drive down the road, yeah.
You can see them on every intersection they put in, you can see the new versus the
Just
old.
pass.
So Joe, could you do that today, the signage?
Did what?
Could you do that today, the signage?
Yes,
5 foot sidewalk, and the
Okay.
old sidewalk was 2.5
So if
feet.
you had
Wouldn't it be
either,
nice?
Yeah, I mean, that's the whole idea.
Yeah.
I mean,
go ahead.
I don't wanna get multiple conversations.
Sorry.
So you could do that today with signage,
Yes,
which is a big resolve, which reduces the cost. And either one of the other sections come in and feed that.
yes,
So what you're having is you're having to feed into the village and then you're using, let's call
sidewalks
it
and
existing.
existing road.
Yeah,
And we really reduced the cost of this section. I think in Gordy Freight's thing, it was near another 2.5
two
million.
six, 2.6. But
So,
that was for a thing. So we could do that today
yeah, a couple.
with signage,
Yeah,
with
a
signage.
couple questions. I do know that the Portage Lake Association is willing to give us the petunia bed and go to hanging baskets for the flowers, okay? My experience when we did the wellness camp, I thought we could use that extra steep 7 foot sidewalk. MDOT said no, because the utility poles exist there. So this concept doesn't remove the utility poles. I do know that if they don't want to plant petunias, we can fill it in with concrete. And if you look at where they did some of the ADA crossings, there's a utility pole, but where they did the sidewalk, they worked around it. And there's space like that much dirt around the pole. So this becomes very cost effective. It's something that could be implemented soon.
That's what I'm saying. That's
More to do with, more to
signage.
do with striping, right?
And,
It's a combination of striping signage,
Signage and
topical.
and in talking, I'll go
Not
back
digging
to
up.
Wayne being our village president, let him address it, but fixing that sidewalk, keeps telling me there's less to fixing sidewalk or more to fixing it's not as difficult a process as it seems.
It's much simpler now that the.
Yeah.
That's completely different workings.
Yeah.
It's fun energy. Chris is on my phone, but he said he has to leave it. Was there anything you need to say, Chris?
Oh, we have talked about more sessions. Oh my, I see them. Joe and Dan.
Well, my point on this is you could do it today.
Yeah.
Like this. Now. Some of the funding sources we're looking at want to combine things together, so we may not. It's open, whether they would fund that or. But if they didn't, we could do this today. That was my question. With sign.
With signs, we still need to fix sidewalk.
So you couldn't do this with existing sidewalk.
I don't think the public would be happy. They want the sidewalk. That's the priority that came out of the study from the survey from the open house last August.
That was the first thing that came up in the feasibility study from Susan, Andrea, Rod, sidewalks. We heard that from the very beginning. The only reason we tried to do line path is we're following dot.
I understand.
That's where the money is.
But
It's a lot cheaper, maybe it's.
we could can we find other funding, because it is a far less, you take that section, what did you say, 2.6?
So what we should
2.6
probably do
million.
then is we should use our engineering study, to have them look at the sidewalks and cost out the sidewalks. And then just do the sidewalk. So then you could do this and you're all set. Now you gotta get MDOT, having bike on the outside versus inboard, but it's simple. I like it. I don't know where the funding is, but. Yeah, that's good.
These are the questions you'd get asked and answered in your.
Yeah, engineering.
Well, Susan asked the same question, and I guess I look at whatever funding, because it's gonna take more than
Yeah.
to do this. whatever funding and grants you chase goes into a pot of gold. And we spread that to where it's needed. But we were trying to keep it down to, this would greatly minimize the cost and the complexity of going through the village. And I would tell you, if you did these two things, you would get immense community support. Libby?
May I speak?
Go ahead.
Yes, because first of all, we need to call it what it is. It's a bike, a multi, or I like a wellness path, a bike walking wellness path, but whatever you name it, get rid of bike. And use the right name, words matter. The other thing is this village is the cornerstone. We can figure that out affordably. It is a bandwagon and everybody will join. Problem with my perspective with this whole concept is that there was no concrete, this is what it's going to look like. We put the cart before the horse. This is saying to the public or the taxpayers who are funding the grants, even if you go to TAP, it's coming out of my pocket as a public member because my tax dollars go to either SACON funds, grants, or federal grants. My personal donations go personal foundations. So I am funding it, me, Libby, regardless, whether it's a grant or not. I'm seeing ahead of time what I'm going to get, and it's concrete. And I can walk sidewalk in Onekama and go, wow, this would be, look at the bikes. I think we ought to have a bike from Newport Park and a walking trail from Prospect to North Point. It's a great visual, and that's where, as far as I'm concerned, you should spend your first engineering money. Is to get this kind of price.
That's what we just talked about.
Yes, I understand that. I'm endorsing that, and I'm not only endorsing it, but I'm suggesting you share that on your website, that this is our first step. We have a concept, and this is what we're spending part of the $100,000, $130,000.
For one person that hasn't spoken, and to close up the village concept is Wayne. He's sitting there quiet. He observes us. He sat back and watched all of us.
I saw smoke coming out of one of his ears, so yeah, you would think.
Wayne?
So the concept you just presented is basically there, plus repairs and signs. It's
Yeah.
already there.
Yeah, that's what I said.
However, it does not constitute a singular biking, walking, running, jogging trip. There's plenty of places to walk. Village can pony up and say, we're not gonna say no bicycles, so the kids can still ride on the bike. On the sidewalk, skateboards, whatever, I mean, we have to pony up and do that. And then, Route 35 already exists, so basically it's the.
I keep saying, if we can figure out something that people really like,
Okay, so.
people will be willing to help.
So
With-
I already know this concept we just went through, it's easy to sell, because it's new sidewalks, you can't go wrong. That's political capital just coming to you, hand over fist. What I don't know is if it satisfies where the group started with walking, biking, jogging, wellness trail. So I don't know that. That's where other opinions will have to be shared.
I think a next with your ideas.
There's no wrong answer at this.
No.
Yeah, the way we started this is tried to find out what funding. It was a transportation. Whether you walk, ride, stroll, or what have you. And that's what they told us from a funding standpoint, which we followed that. Susan was part of that.
So in the world, I don't think everybody knew.
No, yeah, I was gonna say.
Was it because that's what you desired, or is
wasn't
that
well
money,
communicated.
or is that because that's what you thought the money did? I don't know that.
I'm sorry, say the question.
I don't know if the walking, biking, jogging trail was what people who started this desired, or if they're just doing that because that's what they thought the money would cover.
Yeah.
Well,
not
it's a
sure.
com-
I'm
I-
not
I'm
sure.
not gonna get, this combination between master plan,
I don't care about the master plan.
I do.
you know.
In this context, I don't care about the master.
I guess at the end of the day, we have a concept to go through here. To look at.
Yeah.
Who knows if we'll
That
get funding or whatever.
said, I'm not giving up on the fact that more could happen within the village. And maybe that's completely separate from this, I don't know.
Another
And maybe
thing,
it's another year, maybe it's another decade, maybe it's only a month later, I don't know.
Okay,
That can be separate, and then somehow maybe the domestic one part, all that stuff, I don't know. But, so.
Good discussion
the idea
on
is
this.
for this group to come up with something that can get support, otherwise you'll get nothing.
And that's part of the
No support
funding.
means nothing.
that's part of the funding to help all that, figure out what's going on.
And I've said, I'll say it again. Let's say we got a bunch of funding to do something. Public doesn't like it and they hate it. I wouldn't, but any, you know, what I mean, like, hey, I know a few guys that live here. People, you
So let me ask,
gotta come to Easy Mart and everyone's saying, it's the guy that made the thing I hate.
so,
Right, Nikki, you know. Right. So you don't, I mean, this is a small town, so what we do directly relates to the relationships we're building to our community, our work and everything. We want people to be happy, say, wow, cool, this is better than it was before. We can get that accomplished.
And not only is it better than it was before, but what can we do to make it even? And that's what the sidewalk and the signs.
Joe's got a bunch of questions for MDOT. My question to MDOT is a repaired sidewalk over here for walking and a whatever painted symbol on the road, is that a TAP grant eligible funding?
It's just like all these questions we have. We don't know what the answers were. We came up with some concepts. We got another grant to vet them all out to find out what works, what the costing is and everything together. And isn't it a beautiful thing that we have all these resources
Yes.
to validate all this stuff? If we didn't go to that, we wouldn't even be sitting here.
It's cart before people, anyway, I think what we have now, what you have now is a great way to start, and I would start with the sidewalks and the signs and let that be the first thing the grant money is used for from the Michigan Health.
and I would tell you that,
Before we go with any of the others. Is the way
I know it was requested on businesses. I don't think we can not talk to people. I can tell you that when people are watching what we do. Mickey and I went to dinner Friday night after this meeting at the Blue Slipper. Sitting at the table, somebody walks up and goes, hey, can't believe the hard time they gave you and had to shut you up so you couldn't talk to the businesses. I went, what? And he patted me on the back and walked away. And I went and asked him, he said, how the hell did you hear about this? Was on the Owl.
Everything's recorded.
I played golf. I went to help my wife at the thrift shop being remodeled. I had two
This is
women.
why we're doing this meeting here and recording it.
It's the only reason that
Yeah.
I'm here.
Because we wanna be open and transparent.
You do
What-
need to
what-
get into
I
the
would
north
like to
section.
go to the
Yes.
north section. Thank you, Bill.
Okay, let's go to the
Okay.
north section.
So
so
if we,
let me ask real quick,
Yes.
sorry. Is the concept that was just presented, can that satisfy all, let's admit it, there's some divisionary here, does that satisfy all the groups? And Dave, does that satisfy the master plan, the township? I know this isn't necessarily in the township, but does it satisfy the master plan for the township? Or its desires, whatever.
I think Chris put it well when we were talking yesterday about the south section and we got to 8 Mile. And then we had to get over to First Street
Transition.
and we had a transition area. Well, so it's a big transition, but maybe this is the transition, the only way the trail, as it were, can transition through the village. And so now it's up to MDOT to tell us, will they help us pay for it?
Or do we find other grants?
Can you get behind it? What was just presented, could you get behind that?
I could get behind it if it's fundable.
Yeah,
Okay,
that's my
that's-
point.
You're right. So I would tell my group, I said, you know what? I wanna decide on a plan, then we'll worry about the money.
Yep.
Because there's a number of ways to get money.
There's enough money to
Some
do
some
this.
grants do this, some grants do that, and
Right.
maybe-
And you're, and then you're,
And I don't wanna pretend to be the grant guy, so, but I do know that.
and it might, they might say, there's money for this and it's a year.
Yeah, very simple process, like I told
Yeah.
Joe up there.
I was slightly pushed by the bigger fund a
See,
little bit, and,
Good.
you know,
they're very, I tell you, they're
the
a great,
presentation comes from whoever.
but they're great people. And they, and the nice thing about the Minger funds, you're only competing with Manistee County.
They're supporting this project. We met them quite a few times. Can I,
I-
anything
Can we
else?
go to-
Okay, can we go to north section?
Yeah.
We're gonna stand up there?
Yep.
I talked to Mark after, the meeting.
Mark.
When we said, when you look at the north trail here, okay? You've got a lot of embankments and
And it's-
challenges along the way.
It's going from Portage Point Drive out to North Point.
Yeah. So the thought on that section is to either stripe it, do something similar to the plan that Joe was showing us through. Because there's so many undulations from that standpoint.
But
There's-
no,
Sure.
all summer long, was also out to Langland Park, through the village, out to Pleasant Beach Road and back. It's a great 14-mile ride. Having ridden Portage Point Drive, it would just be improving the shoulders. The shoulders are crumbling in places and they could be widened without, it seems like they could be widened without making significant impact and needing.
And I can tell you a little bit of history on that. Porch Point Road was resurfaced, couldn't tell how long. The, I think, supervisor at that point, and we're trying something, South Porch Point Road. They didn't have any funding or anything, so part of the deal was they were trying to make a walking, biking, multi-use trail. I mean, this is 3 years ago.
But if you had
So,
a little bit,
and then, we went to the road commission and we might, in the records, it was supposed to be a 4-foot swath on either side of the road. If we could get to that, we know part of the reason it can shorten because it didn't have money. So in order to get what we got, I think we got the same. Yeah, same. I do. And because the road commission went in there and they dug all this sand and fill. They got permission from Duke. I think we could solve that whole issue instead of people being upset about their driveway and getting messed up, or the people that are on the lakeside, or the pinch points. Because right now, let's say there's maybe 2 feet.
yeah,
If you could go to, like, I'm talking a full 4 feet inside the
would
white
be
line,
great.
that would be nice. You could ride a bike, you could push a stroller.
What
You
section-
could get to all
What
the,
section are we talking?
We're talking about Portage Point Road that
Oh,
goes
once you go
from the
off
stop sign
M22,
all the way down
All
to.
north. You got 11 foot on either side and you got 4 foot,
It would be nice to have.
on the side, but there's another actual 9 to 18 feet that's right away.
Yeah.
So the problem with that is you've got all hills and everything else. The other thing is you're going off M22. So you're going into a different funding structure.
I was gonna say, MDOT won't fund
Yeah,
this.
so what one recommendation is. We got quite a bit to chew on as it is
Yeah.
with the 3 sections. Let's focus on those and look at this as a future exploration. We may be able to have some of the preliminary engineering done, depending on the scope of the other one. And we could have that all put out and then we could lay the
And
names
it's
on it.
concept of maybe adding 2 feet on either side.
Are you saying not do the engineer section now?
No,
he
do
said
the
do
engineering.
it.
Do it.
The engineering, as long as we have enough to manage the other two. And then we have a master, we have a engineering plan. I didn't want to use the master word because somebody doesn't like the master word. Okay. So the nice thing about it is we would have all this engineering work done and we could peel it off as different.
And I should say, have the engineering, what that's talking about, and again, all summer long. If you just had, even if it was a 3-foot, nice, it wasn't crumbling, would make that from a bike rider's standpoint.
Yeah, you'd want to find whatever the standards are.
And you could walk. People at Camp Eden would have a wider space to walk down there to get into the village.
Yeah, it's one of the more, it's all beautiful, but this would be a very nice transitional area to walk, ride, everything else. There's a lot of it, stuff going on in here and.
A lot of public support.
There's a lot of traffic there. I mean, a lot of walking. biking traffic. There is.
And that's why
I don't want to take away from anything else.
If you added 2 feet to one side, you have to add 2 feet to the other side.
Yeah.
It would be nice. to do
No,
that.
not,
Okay.
You don't have to, but it would be.
You don't
nice.
have to do anything.
well, I'm just saying, why couldn't you add 4 feet to one side and have a 6 foot wide?
Well, there's a lot of work. We don't, you have
Yeah.
to, that's what we got the grant.
I think you'd have
Like a
trouble.
wetland.
As a bike rider, you would have trouble getting bike riders to ride both ways and one going against traffic right here.
Right.
You need to have the bike riders go on both sides of the road.
Unless it's light enough.
There's plenty.
And on that Portage Point Road,
I think it would be just.
go straight through that,
Yes.
way through that. So I'd be afraid to. I just.
I wouldn't send my grand. Just sit behind him, it would get me all pissed off, but I'm not passing people in those curves.
Right.
So I mean, I think you get a lot of public support for that section, so as long as you're doing the engineering, that's great.
Yeah.
And I think what we have are 3 distinct elements here. The South Trail would look significantly different.
I see.
The central,
Yeah.
well, yeah, I'm
Four
counting the central as coming all the way to Portage Point, but you're
Okay.
taking Prospect to
Yeah.
Portage Point Drive as a separate element.
And each one of them has issues. This transition that we talked about before, I personally have an issue with having any kind of trail from that standpoint. That, as I said earlier, that may disqualify this. The other side might be gets disqualified because all the water in the rain area. There might be issues here. So we don't know until we have people look at it and come back to us and say what can be get done. And then there's always people that say you could do whatever if you have as much money as you want. We got to balance that thing too, So I think we have a good tentative layout for everything.
Will you get the
And
new village concept to MDOT? Because the other one is.
They already have the other one. We'll update it. The only thing we gotta look on that is to make sure the bikes are on the outboard of the car. So make sure that that's okay, because your bikes are on the outside of the parking lane, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, so we just gotta.
Which
make
is
sure-
what they do right now.
I know, I'm just saying, if we're asking them to do anything,
They have to make sure.
Yeah.
That they're gonna give us the funds.
think about them as they own the road, we're renting it. You know what I
Okay.
mean? That's the way I look at it, whatever their rules are.
Go back to when we did the wellness path, what we proposed, or were trying to propose on the road was. And again, if you went from curb, if you came out from the curb 8 foot. And just a marked second line, 3 foot wide, but MDOT told me at that time. They wouldn't allow that, but if you brought up that, I think with this concept you had. There are variances that could happen. So,
Everything's flexible on that. That other concept that we talked about, he was squeezing 10 pounds and 5 pound back.
yeah,
You know what I mean? But it allowed for sidewalks, the fun sidewalks. It didn't take care of parking, so it checked off a lot of boxes. Whether it works or not, we'll find out. Okay? So that's good. Any other questions we have on this one? Nope. This piece. Okay.
Making progress.
Yes.
Baby steps, baby steps.
So like I said before, Matt and I are rolling together those drafts to get somebody to look at all this stuff for us. MDOT has all this stuff. We'll update them with this one here. Very simple.
Okay, so
We could do this. If we did another phase, we could throw this in the phase, whether the sidewalks are done or not.
that's the question get a
So
lot.
let's say there's 4 phases. You gotta replace sidewalk to make this work.
Yes,
Okay. Okay.
not all of it. I mean, would it be nice to have the whole length of new sidewalk? You wouldn't have to replace all of the sidewalk in that stretch.
I'm curious to know why you asked.
I'm trying to figure out how to make sure we can get money in the village. You know, of all the, I'm trying to figure out how do we get the sidewalks rolled in here when it's not continuous. Now, I'm just trying to figure out, you know, they're,
Let me give you a ballpark figure. When we did the wellness pay, 6,920 feet, all new sidewalk. 5 feet wide, it's roughly 30, almost 35,000 square feet of concrete. The quote we had from Brett Matthew, who's a reputable builder, last year, and he gave us an increase in it, was to, if you removed all 6,900 square feet of sidewalk and you poured new 5 foot wide sidewalk, you'd be looking at an approximate cost of $10 per square foot. We don't have 6,900. I did an estimate. We're probably under 6,000 feet as we take out intersections and what MDOT's already repaired. Okay. That means 30,000 square feet of concrete on a perfect guess, $10 a square foot. You're $300,000 to fix the sidewalk.
yeah, and maybe more from that standpoint. I mean, ideally, I'd like to move all the utility lines and put a whole new sidewalk. But I'm trying to get the multi-transportation in there, you know. It's on the outside, so,
If they would allow a narrower secondary line biking, you know, right now, if you go out there, it has 2 lines, it's covered up. Different space in the highway. But if you had an 8-foot space, if we're allowed to measure from the curb out, and then you could have a 3 or 4 foot secondary line with those bike symbols in it. That was what we were originally trying to do with the wellness.
So Joe.
And then it would be a multiple use walking, biking configuration.
So I had a question though about these utilities, because we've heard about that. Through PLA, and did you find out who owns poles? Are you saying the village owns them?
No, I think the utility, I think they owned by the utility company who has an easement because it's in the MDOT right of way. I think MDOT gave it an easement. If I look at it, they own 66 feet. Those poles are within the 66 feet, so it means they would have had to have an easement.
I had a conversation with them when we came up with that concept. I said earlier in the meeting,
Because we had problems with those poles when we spent all that money through PLA to do the lights. And those were done many years ago,
Go ahead.
somebody climbed up with plugs in. And so the consumers wanted over $25,000 just to replace it, and you're not allowed to have an outside. You have to be down,
They own the lines.
yeah, and the line.
Rick?
as I said earlier, it depends who owns the pole. Is it MDOT that has an easement, or the electricity has an easement? If the electricity utility company has an easement, conceptually, MDOT can say they move them from a safety issue. Okay?
And that could be either moving the poles from under, I think undergrounding.
Undergrounding, you're going to a whole nother financial. You can look at that as an option, but I would try to move them somehow, get them down there. Okay. Okay, so we're good with the concepts where we got them.
Wait to hear from him.
Yeah, we'll get that. Matt and I will start, picking off the, RFQs. Proposals for that piece, and we'll put it together. Also on our agenda, we didn't put on there, our
Did put the work.
work group stuff. Joe, I know you sent something to Matt. He just sent it to me, so I haven't looked at the maintenance.
Matt asked me to look at maintenance
Yeah.
and I gave him an overview. Tremendous cost, but that was based on asphalt.
Well, I think you should still look at that because of the other sections.
I will. But
So,
the big cost in that, I had a lot of questions in it. You can't go forward with a lot more maintenance till we have, the first section is cost of maintaining asphalt, but then there's a whole series of questions to answer before we could really
okay,
look
good.
at maintenance.
We'll try to get that. And then Susan and Dave, you guys are doing the outreach.
Not me.
No,
Yeah.
I'm doing the school.
Yeah,
and
you're
the-
doing-
And the library.
No, I'm working with Frank Beaver.
Yeah, the outreach on the partners.
Okay, if that's what you're.
Yeah.
Frank, I don't know Frank said.
Frank is with
Frank
the,
Beaver's with the tribe and,
You're working with the tribes.
and I've spoken to Frank and our kind of pull an idea out of the air was to try to look at points on the trail where we might be able to introduce some native plants.
okay, so next month, we'll talk about those. Next doing, connectivity on the piece too. So he talked to me briefly about a couple of things.
busy.
Yeah, he's in Europe. Right. Okay, public comment?
I would encourage you to get communication settled and figure out what a multi-transportation trail, that sounds like MTT, that sounds good. You need to start using, we all need to start using the same word to describe this. The other thing I would encourage you to do is update the website with this information. It hasn't been updated since you have the feasibility study now that you can read. I don't know if you made a report at the board meetings. I would.
Well, I wasn't at the last board meeting.
Okay.
I was out of.
All right, okay, then that explains. But again, those are the ways people, you stop rumors. If it's, you can find the information. So I would encourage you to be more transparent. Share as much as you can. This is all great. This is all positive. This is all terrific. It is shift, it's compromise. It's the very best of this community. You need to get that message. Quite frankly, it's not out there right now. So I would, that's my public comment. Kudos to all of you. And Wayne, thank you.
Anything else, Wayne? You got?
No, I agree with Libby. However, I also understand that it's hard to put out a lot of concepts that don't.
When we don't know what it
trash and so it's risk.
I got a question for Vic. Vic, were we waiting for some PDF to redo the website or something?
Just tell me what you want to do.
Okay, I thought we needed something.
PDF you can read. The feasibility study is now, that was not when it. first
No,
went.
wasn't there something we needed?
So the very, very first meeting of this trails team after the new trails team, Joe mentioned that if you're gonna make changes to the website, capture what's there right now. I
And
think
you've got
Libby
that.
endorsed that. And Joe, because Joe did a PDF. I can, in a matter of a couple minutes, go up to our website and copy everything that's there right now. What I need is someone to give me the document that replaces it. I'd like it in a PDF
The
format.
language?
Yeah, I just need a PDF and then
Okay.
I'll upload that PDF to the website and,
What we're calling,
well, what I would do is.
There has been updates out there on the web from some of the meetings we've been at.
If they have, I don't know where to find them.
There-
Yeah, if you click on the trail right now,
So right now, the only up there is the original, this is the feasibility study.
Right,
Then this is the old stuff that was.
that it's the section that needs to be replaced.
Right, so what I would do is just copy this and then in the new, whatever you give me, I would want when I copy this. I'll take a link to this and the very first thing in the new PDF will be, here's a link to the old stuff.
exactly.
And then you can go to the old stuff. I just need someone to do a Word document. Print it as a PDF, send it to me and tell me, yeah, Vic, it's okay that in the trails area, this is the document that you put.
Don't you have the grant on there too?
That's all.
Yeah,
You have to go. Yes, it is difficult to navigate.
Well, but now that's a web design question. At this point, I just need to get the information.
It's great, I would definitely do that. I totally
think
agree.
If that section simply stated that there are multiple phases, you might list what they are. The committees work through, try and find consensus with the direction and the engineering can be funded by the existing endowment grant that you have. And I think that's what people need to hear, that we're making progress.
This section here, where did trails come from? All this. This was a collaboration, a document that went from Rick, Dave, to Chris, to me, and it took us 2 weeks to dot the i's, cross the t's and all that. That's what needs to happen now, is this team put together a document that everybody agrees with, check each other's work, and then, I think I'd like to have it in a Word document, because then what
You can
I'll do
upload
is
it.
I'll put the PDF, I'll put the link to this in that, and then I'll print it as a PDF, and then I'll stick it out there.
I think the simpler we keep it, the easier
that's what
people
you
can
guys have to
comprehend.
agree.
And if it had the full map and just identified the areas and we're making progress, I think that's all people need to hear right now.
we have to make sure that people know there's a distinction between new information.
Well, there's this whole simplicity thing, which I totally agree with, but if you start putting maps in there as well, I think then you're really
Okay.
creating some issues.
Then you do it in word form, but keep it short and simple, and we're making progress. Watch for updates. I think that's what people are looking
That's-
for.
Phase
one.
Yeah, and it says it will be updated regularly, and I mean, that was in September, it said it would be updated regularly. Now practically May. Again, it's a matter of communicating.
Web communications needs to be assigned to some people on this team and then give it to me. I can put it up, but I'm not gonna develop it. No.
we'll get it to you. We'll get a document, send it around. Yes, Wayne?
Just for clarification, I don't. Explain to me what the dilemma is, because we don't have continuous sidewalks and, or they're just a couple spots we need to link together to have them? And what is that holding up?
That's on the south side, but we have a continuous sidewalk on this north side.
Michigan Municipal League, when we were looking at
So
grant.
does continuous then mean both sides?
I don't know what the,
It meant from one part of, he couldn't identify where our downtown was, okay?
But we have a continuous sidewalk through the whole.
But looked at it on Google Maps, there's nothing on this side. I mean, it's not continuous on this.
And
side.
that's what Wayne's asking. Does the municipal league granting require both sides? Because we do have a continuous.
Yeah, I thought I heard Rick say because we didn't have any sidewalks, so. Problem for funding something.
That'd be great.
No,
Misinterpreted.
yeah, I didn't say, what I was saying is a continuous, you do it right now. It's not gonna take,
I don't know.
I don't know anything about this grant thing that Susan's talking about.
So just me, I talked to Susan about that one before, so that's what that's all about, is just that one. At this point.
Okay,
Matt?
Yeah.
This is on the edge of the meeting, but given the fact that we've had difficulties with this meeting and we've had difficulties in previous meetings, is Ed Bradford the one to talk to about the internet connection and connectivity in this building? Is he the,
Possibly that. I know they just had a bunch of work done here.
they had, yeah,
Cameras,
Cameras.
servers, and stuff updated.
yeah, but I don't think that had anything to do with,
Libby, do you have problems with the township meetings?
All the time.
Okay.
Okay.
Been saying that for a year and a half.
Now, does it come and go? Is that what it is? Like you hear?
and it's because the OWL connectivity relies on Wi-Fi.
It's because, you're right, and it's also because of that's how, what they decided to buy when they.
Well, they've got the right equipment, they just need to make one of these
Well,
RJ45 jacks live.
okay, I would love you to talk
That's
to
good.
Ed Bradford.
Can we adjourn the meeting? Are we
Yeah.
done?
Yeah.
Make a
Okay.
motion.
Yeah.
Okay.
good, thank you.
Because I've been
If you'd
talking
like,
for over
I'll
2
Yeah, the
work
years.
next one's
Smith
gonna
a
be on
draft
May 30th.
idea.
There's
Yeah,
five Fridays.
for you,
Sure, go ahead.
There's
kick
five
it out to
Fridays
you
in May.
and
Oh, we're picking.
No, get everybody.
I always.
That's what we did. That's what he said in the
Parks
other
and
one.
Rec is always the last.
Everybody
let me
takes
take a stab at it. I'm gonna make it simple. I'll kick it out to you and you go forward with it from there.
Just set it out there.
It's the 23rd
Yeah, I'll just-
that is
I'll just do it in
Memorial
Word.
Day.
I've
Yeah,
got
it doesn't
writing,
have to
I've got
be.
Because there
writing.
is no
So
Monday,
do all the
Monday
grammar
is
and shit.
June.
Okay,
I can,
If-
and I'll just break it into simple sections
There's no
and then
Monday.
let me know
Memorial Day.
if you want
is
me to
the
expand
last
it or whatever, but I
Monday
think
in
if
May.
I
it's
think,
just,
I
That's
think
Memorial Day is
sweet.
26th.
less is
Okay.
better.
Gotcha.
Yes.
See what I'm saying?
Because